I gratefully acknowledge this series was recorded on the unceded traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. Indigenous peoples have maintained stewardship and jurisdiction over these lands since time immemorial.
And some will say, what is Finn short for? And and then I'm...
Which is code word for what
are
is
you? What is that? And I get a lot of questions like, are you Irish? People will just say, are you Irish? And I was like, is Irish code for something?
Welcome to Mistergendered, the show where we swap labels for lived experience and get curious about life beyond the binary. Today, we meet Finn Austin, an emergency room doctor for 25 years, an avid outdoors person, and an ultra trail runner, which means really, really long runs. Let's join the conversation. So welcome, Finn.
Thanks. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm so glad to have you. So how we going to start out is by getting a quick snapshot of how you identify who you are today, and then we'll, dig into how you got here. So anything, age, pronouns, gender, chocolate, favorite ice cream, how you fully identify.
Yeah. Okay. Well, my pronouns are they, them. My name is Finn, and I'm a partner to Sue. I'm a kid to two parents. I'm a sibling to two other folks, and I don't know. There's no word for it. There's no gender neutral word for your relationship to your niece and nephews. But I'm that person. I walk through this world as a person who feels, it's not like I don't have a gender. I'm just somewhere floating in the messy middle and feel pretty happy there.
Yeah, I think I've always found that interesting and kind of courageous in a way of you to just say, I am all these things, but I'm not gonna hang on to a term, especially a lot that are thrown around. Is that true that you're kind of, there's butch, there's non-binary, there's, mask, all the things, but none of those resonate for you, really?
None of those resonate for me. I'm quite a visual person.
Right.
I've always been a visual person. I have a very active mind's eye. Mm-hmm. And even when I was younger, when I would try to picture what I would be doing later in my life, whether it was thinking about my teenage years or thinking about my adult years, like, what would I be doing? Where would I be living? What kind of work would I be doing? I never pictured myself as a particular gender. I never thought about it.
Really?
It was not up here on my radar at all.
So it was more like I could be an athlete or a doctor or a nurse or an engineer or a whatever, a plumber, but there was no gender. That's so interesting. I never
even pictured myself in clothing that would be related to a particular gender, or visualize like, well, what would I look like when I'm in my 20s? What would I look like when I was in my 40s? I could not picture it.
So did you picture the experience or the thing?
I would imagine
not like what you looked like?
It would imagine what I would be seeing, like as if I was looking through my own eyes.
So you weren't looking at yourself.
But I was never looking at myself. And I distinctly remember this from when I was so young. When I was in elementary school, I had a good friend, and I would go over to her house all the time, and we'd always play in the basement. And we played all kinds of things. Teacher, doctor. We played Olympic athlete quite a bit in her basement. And she was always like, I'm going to be a female gymnast. And I was like, oh, I think I'll be a bodybuilder. Like I was probably 8 or 9. But it didn't matter to me that that probably wasn't something that was available to me if I had been an adult in the 70s.
Right.
And then I said, no, I'm going to be a karate expert. And so she would be spinning around doing the sort of the ballet things, and I would be stacking up these blocks and then pretending to karate chop them in half.
Wow.
But it was because I was like, well, that's just who I feel like I would be. I would be doing these sports that would be like a little, like more typically associated with like a male or a masculine individual. But it didn't matter to me that wasn't stereotypically available to me. I never thought about it.
Huh.
It didn't matter.
So how did that show up even as that 8-year-old in your family? Like, was that just in the basement at your friend's house, or were you that person in your family? Was that okay or accepted, or how did that work?
I often think that if it wasn't for my family, and it wasn't for people who I didn't know who made negative comments, it wouldn't have mattered to me, because I was that kid, I was that teenager, I was that young adult, and I was fine with it. Like it felt comfortable, it felt good to me. It was only the negative information that I received from people around me that made me think, oh, it's not okay to be that way. Like, I did absorb that message eventually, that that's not okay for me to be that way. I think it was quite distressing for my parents, for me to show up in the way that I did. And there was definitely struggles. I wanted to wear more typically masculine clothing from a very young age. So a lot of my struggles with my mom was around clothing,
right?
Like 100%. And at a certain point, I made the decision that I wasn't going to wear more stereotypic feminine clothing anymore. It was around the early 90s.
How old were you then?
I was in my early 20s.
Okay.
And my brother's wedding, I said I would wear a dress, and then after that, it was the last time. So it's like I remember the last time I wore a dress, because it was like after that point, I'm kind of done. And my cousin got married a couple of years later, and I had told myself I'm not wearing that clothing anymore. So I wore just men's dress pants and a button-down shirt and a vest. And my dad, who was always fine with it, when I came down from getting dressed, he said, well, I have some extra ties. Like, would you like a tie with that?
Aww. And
my mom was like, she would definitely not like a tie with that. And it was like understood that was the end of the conversation. So yeah, there was some pretty tough times around that. I feel really happy about how I've shown up for the past couple of decades. It really just feels like myself.
Right. And what about coming out? Where did that fit into the whole picture, and kind of how you came out first? And I know that's changed for you for the years.
Yeah, I came out when I was 20. And I fell in love with the queer community. I fell in love with the queer community. I love the people who I was surrounded by. I was definitely surrounded by folks of all gender expression, like more feminine women, middle of the road, more masculine of center folks. And it was a really important and formative time for me. And a lot of the folks that I was hanging out with and identified as close community were butch lesbian. And so while I didn't necessarily really use that word a lot for myself, it did feel like it was most closely aligned.
Right.
And so when things started to shift for me in the past number of years, and I was thinking about like, how else might I change my gender expression or pronouns or name, it was there was some difficulty a little bit of deciding around pronoun because of my real connection with the community when I came out, because I was like, these are my people. It's women, there's butch lesbians, masculine of center folks, and it was So it did form part of like, how am I going to decide what pronoun am I going to use is so much of those formative experiences.
Right.
Yeah.
So thinking a bit about your years working and, as a younger person, new doctor, and kind of the work situations you were in, and how did showing up as yourself, or did you ever have to compromise, or did you ever wear things differently? Like,
I did have to wear things differently. When I was in medical school, I wore things that I didn't necessarily want to wear for a variety of reasons. One is because I needed to present as a person who'd be taken seriously.
right.
So that was a bit of a shift from how I would have dressed before that. And also I understood that it would be really complicated if people didn't understand my gender. And so while I didn't go so far as to wear dresses or skirts again, because I had told myself I wasn't going to do that again, I would wear some clothing that people would say, oh, that's a woman. It's a girl. And it was very, very intentional. So I had some shirts that had little flowers on it. Now things have changed. A lot of masculine of center folks, male identified folks wear shirts with flowers, but not in the 90s.
Right.
Or the late 80s. They did not.
So that was your little signifier.
So that was my signal. I had shirts with flowers on them. I was like, see, I'm a girl. And it didn't feel comfortable. It didn't feel good. But I, in some degree, kind of knew I had to do it. And I did it through medical school and residency. And then after that, I gave it up. And at work, it's not a big deal because for the past 25 years, I've worn scrubs. Everyone wears exactly the same thing.
Right.
I love my job.
Right.
I love my job for a lot of reasons, but that also, nobody cares what you wear. You all wear the same thing. And we also all wear the same thing, even it doesn't matter what role you have. So it flattens that whole hierarchy as well.
Right.
Everybody wears the same clothing.
Right.
And it's interesting, in my first 10 years of practice, of work, I had more of my patients be unclear about my gender. And while on some level that was fine with me because I'm kind of unclear myself and it wouldn't matter. The only time it matters is then when there's people are unhappy about that. So that was more in that first sort of 10 years. And for some reason, even though now I'm like, oh, I'm somewhere in the middle and I use they, them pronouns, people have less difficulty understanding sort of who I am. And so I don't really understand that shift, but yeah.
So I guess sort of like 10 years ago, there was less of the they, them and the pronouns, and people were like, are you a man or a woman? And what is this? And if you're a woman, I don't want a woman doctor kind of thing. Or
just would not be sure, like, am I he, him? Is it she, her? And I would get called like he a fair amount. And then somebody would correct them. And then there would be that awkward moment where everyone was a bit sort of awkward about that.
Right.
And then I don't know if it's just that I'm an older adult now and it's more obvious to people.
Right.
I don't know. Even though now I feel like I'm less clear. It's sort of ironic. Everyone else is clear, but I'm less clear.
Oh my God, that's so great. It's so interesting. But I guess like if you have, do you have your name tag with like your pronouns on it and stuff or no? About
5 years ago at the hospital, we were offered that our name tags could have our pronouns on it.
Right.
And it was around similar time when I changed my name. And so I got a new name tag. And so someone said to me, oh, it's cool. You could put your pronouns on it. And I was like, I don't think so. So lots of people have the pronouns on. It's all the cis people have their pronouns.
Right. They jump.
I'm like pronouns are for cisgendered people.
They are.
And I love it, right? I love that because it does indicate that they have at least an awareness.
Sure.
And they want the patients and the clients to know, hey, I'm cool. Like if you want to tell me what your pronouns are, I get it, right?
Yeah.
And so someone said to me, why don't you have they, them on your name tag? I said, because I only have 10 minutes to create a rapport with this person in front of me. And if for the first 3 minutes of it, they're looking at my name tag, trying to figure what they, them means, I don't really want that 10-minute encounter, a third of it to be taken up by their brain going, they, them, what is that? Oh, I know that. Or, who's this? What's going on? And I just don't want it to be part of my encounter with this person who's in front of me. I really just don't have that much time to have a relationship with them. And the relationship is quite critical for my work. Like I need them to have confidence in me and trust me that in this short period of time, I'm going to care for them. I'm going to try to understand their experience. I'm going to provide them with some relief or treatment or whatever. And I feel like it's just going to get in the way.
Right.
And I was trying to explain this to somebody at work who's a cisgendered man. And he was like, do you think you're overthinking it? And I was like, no, I don't.
But what about your appearance, which is kind of they, them anyway, without your name tag saying they, them.
Right.
Do you think that, as you're saying now, it's just people have a bit more awareness or understanding? Or do you ever feel like in that first 10 minutes, no, they, them, but they're like, Finn, who are you? Do you think that happens? Or you quite convinced that taking away the pronouns helps with that?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer to that. I suspect that the younger cohort of people that I care for probably are like, oh, Finn looks like a they, them.
Right.
And they just kind of move on, right? They don't even care anyways. What does it matter to them? The older adults will look at the name tag, will look at me, and then they have not a lot of clue what's happening. Right. And some will say, what is Finn short for? And and then I'm...
Which is code word for what are you?
What is that?
Help us here.
Short for something? And most of the time I say no, but sometimes I just make stuff up.
Is short for Tiffany. Tiffany. Oh my God, that actually works.
And I get a lot of questions like, are you Irish? People will just say, are you Irish? And I was like, is Irish code for something?
Oh my God. So true.
Yeah. And so then I just say yes. Yeah, it doesn't matter to me in a way that it mattered to me 20 years ago. At some point, I realized I didn't have to ask anybody's permission to be who I was. I didn't have to ask anybody's permission to use a different name. I didn't have to get anybody's approval to just be living my life. And so I'm sure that people have some kind of experience of me at work, and I don't care. Like in the sense of it doesn't matter to me anymore.
Right.
And just to let go of that has just been, it's just been a real relief.
It's an extra burden to carry every day, because I don't know what your experience is, but I do think about where I'm going, who I'm going to see, and how they're going to respond to me. And, it's hard to let go of it entirely because it's not always positive. It's not always like, oh, hey, you gorgeous they, them. You're handsome. Love your outfit. Love your haircut.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love that you're challenging the patriarchy right now. Like that happens all the time.
Yeah. That's such my experience. And I recognize that I'm in a very privileged situation. Right.
Yeah.
I'm really aware of that. I live in a city in North America where it's very accepting. I can walk in this manner, and for the most part, I don't experience a lot of negativity from it. So I recognize that is a really small slice of the world, and I'm very fortunate.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
we, being white, don't have that other layer of
Yeah.
discrimination.
And I also don't have to worry that am I going to get fired from a job, or
Right.
am I going to find a job where people are going to hire me because of how I present? I don't have those extra concerns. Yeah.
So if you would, I'd love to talk about changes that have happened for you in the last few years, where pronouns and name and changes to the body. And I wanted to start a bit with going back to the film. So film being Not Quite That, which is a documentary about, for those who don't know, is a documentary that Finn was in and I was the subject of. And it's a film about a bunch of things, including how we see ourselves and how we're seen. And it's really what's inspired all of these conversations about representation. So you were not Finn then. And if you would, to tell us about what led you, has this just been ongoing? When did it start, or was it always there? And yeah, just tell us the story, if you would, about your journey with that.
I love the dinner party that you hosted, and I love the conversation. So I just want to start by saying I just thought it was very brave to spark that conversation and say, here's a question. If you had to have a mastectomy because of reasons around health concerns, would you have reconstruction? And the conversation, like what people said, was all across the spectrum of people's thoughts around that. And one of the, there were so many things that were surprising to me about the conversation, so much about it that I loved. And I realized as I heard myself speaking, it was probably the first time I had articulated to someone out loud that the reason why I would keep the chest that I was born with would be for other people, so they would know what I was.
Right.
And that was the only reason. And so it made me think, I'm still living someone else's idea of who I should be. I want to live a life that I'm not asking permission from people anymore to show up, to how I'm going to look, how I'm going to dress. And I thought I had a little bit of envy when I would hear about people saying oh, I'm going to have top surgery. There was a little flicker of envy, oh, why do they get to? And I was like, well, finish that sentence. Why did they get to and I don't?
Right.
I could do that.
Right.
There's nothing that's holding me back. And some of that holding that idea of something's holding me back was all this stuff from growing up.
Right.
If you wear that, people will think you're a boy. If you play that way with your friends outside, people will think you're a boy. And that is not okay. And this so hard to get rid of.
Yeah.
So I made the decision, and I do like to say that part of my decision was just being part of the conversations with you. And so when I started down that road to have gender affirming surgery, it felt great. It felt right. It's been fantastic. I love how I was saying, I was a visual person, and I could sort of picture myself out in the world, but I didn't picture what I whether I would look like a man or a woman.
Right.
It's not entirely true. Never pictured myself with breasts. I always would picture myself with like a flat chest. And for years, when I would see a picture of myself, I never looked any different. Older as the years go by, but I never looked any different. Every time it would be a bit of a surprise to me that I would be like, oh, right, I look like that. I have that chest.
Right.
Because in my mind's eye, I never had that chest.
Right.
I didn't have it.
Right.
And so I'd see the photo and be like, oh, right. Or I'd see myself in the mirror and I'd be like, oh, right, that's how I look. Because it's not how I think I look.
Right.
It's not how I feel.
Right.
But now for the past 3 years,
3 years, yeah.
I'm like, I see myself. I'm like, that's me.
Right.
That is me.
Right.
That's how I always thought I looked. But now I actually do look that way.
It's all kind of come
It's
together.
all just like, I'm like, yeah, right. That's how I always thought I looked. But now I actually do look that way.
Yeah. You know, I remember when I think about the other part in the film, the Butch photo shoot, and how I found that really empowering. But also I remember, like, you know, the part when Lara's having hot flashes and I was like, what? There was this tough, because after I had my surgery and I felt so much more comfortable in my body, I would kind of look at people like you and Lara and others who were kind of, you know, more masculine presenting and be like, what? Like, why do you have breasts and why did you have menopause?
Right.
This is not fitting for me.
Right.
So So, I mean, that seems to be that experience for you of just feeling at home, you know, now.
Yeah.
What about the name? So you had a female identifying name before. And so I guess that would sort of go with the wanting to be not have that, or
before I had my surgery, I went out for coffee with a friend and I told a friend, I said, hey, I have some news to share with you. I've decided that I'm going to have gender affirming surgery. And she was so happy for me. She's like, oh my God, congratulations. I'm so happy for you. Like, tell me more.
Yeah.
And then she said, and what do you think? Like, are you going to take a different name or different pronouns? And at the time I said, no, I think it's really just about looking like how I would feel like I was going to look. I realized though, after a bit of time, that I wanted other things to line up. And so I took the next step and I said, oh, I actually would like to have a different name.
right.
That feels a little bit more like it fits
Right.
for how I feel, gender wise.
Yeah.
And same friend, she's like, that's awesome. What about the pronouns? And I was like, I think I'm good. You know, I'm going to keep them.
Right.
She's like, okay. We'll wait. We'll see.
Right. It's an evolution, hey?
It is. And I think I don't regret the fact that I took time and I took things like step by step. It feels fine. It feels great.
Yeah.
And it is hard. Like I feel like, like the she, her is like, that's like my history, right? Those are my people. And I just felt like it wasn't really accurate anymore.
Right.
And it wasn't, as soon as I started telling people like, I'm gonna go by they, them. And as soon as people would start referring to me that way, it felt right. I was like, oh, okay.
Right.
Like it feels like
Right.
that feels like that really fits. It feels
Right.
good.
But you haven't actually changed your people.
No,
I was just going to say, like,
no, same people.
we're still friends.
Yeah. They didn't let me go as
They
it
let you
turned
go.
out.
Yeah. Would you talk a bit about, because for me, I didn't actually realize that one could have top surgery or change a name or change of pronouns, but not necessarily transition or want to transition. What was that like for you? Did you ever consider transitioning? Was that part of it or not part of it?
I think that's the part that made, I don't know, would I have had surgery earlier than this if I had thought about it in this way? I don't know that that's true. I think I just needed to come to it organically. But I didn't necessarily think about it, that it was available to folks who just said, hey, I just feel more comfortable this way, gender expression wise. And I'm not moving in a direction. I'm not transitioning. This is just how I want to look because it feels congruent. I didn't necessarily know that was a real option. Yeah. And then it became more common. And so then it all kind of collided. It fit because then it was around the time of like you were doing the filming and we were having those conversations. And so I think it all just kind of came together at the right time. The transitioning to live as a man isn't something that I'm interested in. Like that doesn't feel like that would fit. And I feel like now I'm
You're good.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm landed. Like,
right.
I'm just happy.
Yeah.
I think this is it.
Well,
but I was wrong before, so
I'll talk to you in a few months or a year.
Yeah.
But yeah, you've inspired me to, make me think about, like, it started to happen for me where I was like, I don't want a female identifying name. It just doesn't feel right. So in that way of not knowing, I'm just like, all right, I'll do Sarah right now. We'll just try that. But like, it's on my list, new name, anyway. But it's so important to have models and have people who've, gone before us and done these things. And most importantly, to see how happy and good you feel. So let's do some kind of fun stuff. What's cat or dog? Person? Cats or dogs? Or both?
Both. Although, I grew up with cats.
Okay.
I grew up with cats, and then somewhere along the line, I became allergic. And then I became a dog person. So dog.
You've come out as a dog person. How about what kind of music or song just gets you up dancing?
Oh, I did a little bit of clubbing in the 90s, I won't lie. And so there is nothing. 90s dance music is a thing.
Yeah, I know. I've been hearing about it.
It's a thing of its own.
Yeah.
When I hear it, I'm like, oh, that's 90s dance music.
Yeah.
So there is something about that because I'm nostalgic for 90s club music.
Right.
But I'll kind of dance to anything that's like peppy and uplifting and
Okay, really serious, crunchy or smooth peanut butter.
Oh.
Or sorry, almond butter if that's you.
If that's your thing. The kind of organic almond butter that's somewhere in the middle, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
A little bit grainy-ish.
Not dry.
I judge. But a little bit grainy-ish. That's it. The middle. The messy middle.
The messy middle. There you go. That makes a lot of sense why you would like that peanut butter. I mean, almond butter. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Nut butter.
Nut butter. There you go. Would you go to like a super busy, well, they all always are busy, Pride Parade, or go to the beach?
Beach.
Right. Fair. Favorite season? Like, is that spring and fall?
Yeah. I love transition seasons where you can
Oh, really?
see...
Interesting. We're sort of in the middle. Kind of like...
Wait a minute.
There's a trend here.
There's a trend here.
What kind of clothes or what do you feel most you in?
Jeans and t-shirt.
Uh-huh.
And I will tell you something.
Yeah.
I never wore white t-shirts before my surgery. Ever. Because it just didn't feel good. And I love jeans and a white t-shirt now.
Now you're rocking the white t-shirt.
Like, that's the thing. Yeah. I never would have worn the white t-shirt before. Mm-hmm. But I love jeans and a white t-shirt.
And how does it feel to, in the summer, take your shirt off? The beach with your bathing suit or how does that go?
Yeah. Interesting question. I have some anxiety around that. It kind of depends where I am.
Yep.
Depends who I'm with, it feels really easy if I'm with my people.
Sure.
And I'm just like at the beach, I'm going to go for a swim. I don't think about it twice. But I do like to swim at the beach, and I would go by myself. And so I am a little bit wary. Again, it kind of depends where I am.
Right.
It depends what I'm doing.
Right. And just say a bit more about that. Like, what's your fear that
that they would suddenly realize again that they don't know what I am.
Right.
And might have a negative reaction. Like, who do you think you are?
Right.
I still think trans and gender diverse, like just taking up our space in the world is still not always a given.
Oh, no.
Like that you can just expect that you can just be yourself, take up the space that you deserve to take up, and not have people like tell you that that's not necessarily the case. And I shouldn't say I still think that. I mean, that's quite clear.
Right.
Like that's very clear.
Even people trying to legislate these things,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we know from having had different chests that was the only ticket, but it still was not okay.
Yeah.
Still, like, you are not the kind of woman or that you should be. Like, you are not what we like here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like we passed even then. Do you know what I mean?
It was a different kind of passing.
Yeah.
But it was
like, it's like a barely pass.
Barely
pass.
Right.
Like
Yeah,
a D.
It was a D. It was a D.
A D.
Yeah.
What about, favorite food, like comfort food? Or,
Pizza.
yeah, you make a mad pizza.
I'm a pizza
Mad good.
maker.
Yeah, you are.
I'm a pizza maker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have favorite places to go in Vancouver? Things to do.
I love to trail run. So my favorite places are on the trails on the North Shore, going for a long run.
Yep.
It's quiet. It's beautiful.
What is important about like, why did you say yes to doing this?
I think it's important for people to know that there's a huge diversity of how people think about themselves, gender-wise, and that we have a variety of experiences of that, a variety of things that inform how we show up, and that we're real people living real lives, and that there's so much now media around trans and gender diverse folks, and it all is focused on a very limited part of the question.
Right.
Should we be allowed to pee where we want to pee? Should we be able to compete in the sport of our choosing? But this is a very small piece of like who we are as humans. And we're not a homogenous population. It's so, we have like as many different thoughts about who we are and how we want to show up in the world as we are humans. And so I think it's important that people understand that, and what our struggles are, but what our joys are.
Yeah.
And how we got to where we are, and who we love, and who loves us. And like you said, it's not common for people to be like, wow, look at your gender diverse self. You are so handsome and just rocking it. Yeah. Like, it's just not how we experience things.
Yeah.
It's like, why not?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why not? And so if folks hear more about like, here's who we are, and here's what's important to us, and here's our lives, maybe it'll just make it more easy for people to see the entire human spectrum, the entire gender spectrum, as
Acceptable.
and to be
And to find
celebrated.
themselves in it, on it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks,
yeah.
Ben.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I'm
That was awesome.
so happy to talk about it with you.
Thanks for listening to Mr. Gendered, the show where we swap labels for lived experience and get curious about life beyond the binary. On Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, Mr. Gendered Pod, web, MrGendered.com, email, hello@MrGendered.com. That's MISTER. The doc, Not Quite That, is at notquitethat.ca, free to watch at TELUS Originals, Optic TV, and Knowledge Network.